Hello friends, welcome back to my channel MEO Exams. So friends, in this video we will see the stress strain curves. So let's begin with the video. So friends, before we go on to the stress strain curves, first see the what are stresses. So stresses are basically the force acting per unit area. So this is the formula for the stresses. So over here in the formula, this is A is the area of cross section. So if we are calculating the engineering stresses, then the area of cross section taken will be the original area of cross section, that is the initial before application of the forces. And if we are calculating the true stresses, then in that case the area of cross section will be taken after or at that particular instant when we are calculating the stresses. Like suppose after application of forces, there will be reduction in the cross section area. So at that particular point, the at that particular instant the force will be taken, and the that particular instant we take the area. So that is for calculating the true stresses. Then we have something called strain. So if this is the workpiece and forces are applied, so there will be an this rod will elongate, and there will be an increase in length. Delta is the increase in the length. So and this workpiece have original length as L. So strain will be equal to delta by L. So this is the formula for the strain, that is distortion in the material due to stresses produced is calculated by strain. Now let's see the type of stresses. So basically there will be tensile stresses, compressive stresses and shear stresses. So because of tensile forces there will be an increase in length, so that are called the stresses are called tensile stresses. And because of compressive forces there will be decrease in length, so that are called compressive stresses. For shear stresses, the two forces will be acting in opposite direction, as you can see over here, and parallel to each other. Okay friends, they are not coinciding, but they are acting parallel to each other. The forces act in such a way that the part of the sections slide on each other. The formula is still the same, force per unit area, but the axis, as you can see, for the tensile the forces are acting opposite to each other, but they are acting along the same line. But over here they are acting parallelly. Okay friends, they are not acting along the same line, so that is why they are called shear forces. One more important thing is friends, there is something called neutral axis. So this axis actually passes through the geometrical center of the body, or centroid of the body. So the stresses, uh, if uh, if this rod is suppose subjected to some bending, then this neutral axis will not be subjected to any kind of stresses, like either it will not be subjected to either compressive stresses or tensile stresses. But the top portion, as you can see over here, will be subjected to tensile stresses, and this lower portion will be subjected to compressive stresses. And one more thing is more thing friends, if we move away from this neutral axis, then the value of the stresses will increase, either tensile stresses or compressive stresses. The value will increase as we move away from this neutral axis. Then we have Hooke's law. So friends, under this is actually stress strain curve, just representing the proportional limit. So during this limit, the stresses produced in a body are directly proportional to strain. Okay friends, and if we remove this proportionality constant, then this is replaced by E, which is called the Young modulus, as you can see over here. So what happens during in this proportional limit, the Young modulus is constant. Okay friends, so this is what is called the Hooke's law. Then we have Poisson's ratio. So as we know, when we are applying force to a rod or to a body, in this figure I have shown the circular or the cylindrical body, but this could be a rectangular or a square body. So the we already know the strains which are produced in the linear direction are calculated as delta L by L, but as the area of cross section decreases, then there will be strain in the lateral direction also. Okay friends, so they are calculated by again same way, delta B by B. If this is B and this is D, then in this direction it will be delta B by B, and in this direction it will be delta D by D. So the Poisson's ratio is the lateral strain, which is this one, divided by the longitudinal strain, which is this one. So this is actually the ratio of strains produced in the lateral direction to that of the strains produced in the longitudinal direction. That is called the Poisson's ratio. Now let's begin with the diagram. So as we can see, this point A and this is the point O. So this region, as I have already told you, this is called the proportionality limit. Okay friends, so under this limit the stresses are directly proportional to strain, and the Young modulus of elasticity will be constant within this proportionality limit. Now this from this point O to B is called the elastic limit. Means that the elastic limit is a point at which the additional stresses causes permanent deformation. Means that if the material is loaded beyond this point B, then what will happen? After these loads are removed or external forces are removed, then the body will not come back to its original shape. Okay friends, so this B OB is the elastic limit. Means that if under B, if load is applied till B or just before V, then the shape of the body will be recovered. But if the load is applied beyond V, then the original shape will not be recovered. And then we have this point B is actually called the upper yield point, where the maximum stress is required to initiate plastic deformation. Okay friends, so point B represents the upper yield point. That is the maximum stress which is required for initiating the plastic deformation. Then this point C is called the lower yield point. So basically in the plastic region, this point C represents the minimum load which is required to initiate deformation. That is, very less load is required for increasing the length. Hope you are understanding friends that with this material length will increase with very small increase in load at point C. As you can see, this is the plastic region. So in this region C is lying at the lowest point. Then we have ultimate stress point. So this point T over here represents the ultimate stress point, which is the maximum stress the material can endure before failure. Beyond this point, necking will start. Then this point E, most of the diagrams you will see this point as F. F means fracture. So basically this fracture point or the breaking point is the point where the material will fail or break. So hope you have understood all the points friends. Now if you see clearly, the graphs can be divided into many sections, like till B, this is the elastic region, then we have strain hardening, and then we have necking. Let's see all these things. Then we have, as I have already told you, this till point B, it is the elastic region. That is, if stresses are released till point B, then the material will come to its original state. Then we have something called elastoplastic region, where if the stresses are released from the material, then it will retain permanent deformation if it is beyond B. Okay friends, and strain hardening. But if the stresses are less than or before B, then it will what to say it will be under elastic region. Means that this is actually a boundary between the elastic and the plastic region. Then we have something called strain hardening. So this region from point B to point D is called the strain hardening region. So strain hardening basically happens due to dislocation interactions. So if the material is loaded beyond the elastic limit, then it will undergo permanent deformation. And after unloading the material, the elastic strain will be recovered. Okay, friends. But the plastic strain will remain. So that I will tell you in upcoming slide. As you can see from this diagram, friends, if the material is loaded beyond this yield point, let's say suppose till y dash, and then the load is removed, then this will follow this curve. So as you can see, this portion, this is called the elastic strain. So this will be recovered, but as you can see, this is not coinciding with the origin. So this much is the plastic limit, also plastic strain. So that will remain even after the load is removed from the material. Hope you are understanding, friends. Y is the yield point, and we are applying load beyond yield point till y dash, and then we are unloading. Then after unloading, we will see that the elastic strains are recovered, but there will remain the plastic strains. So this is the plastic strain. So if again we load, then the loading will follow this line. Okay, friends, and this y dash, now y dash will be the new yielding points. So hope you are understanding, friends. The yielding point or the yielding stress has increased for this same workpiece which has been unloaded previously. Hope you have understood, friends. So if this is the workpiece and we apply load and it is loaded beyond yield point, and then we unload, then suppose now the workpiece is this one which is having a plastic strain in it. Now again, if we apply load or apply load on to this workpiece, then what will happen, this will have a yield point which will be greater than this y, which is y dash. So this will have strain as y dash, stress as y dash, yield stress as y dash, and this will have yield stress as y. Hope you have understood, friends. So this happens because of the dislocation interaction, or this is called the strain hardening process or mechanism. Then we have something called necking. So as I have already told you, friends, that beyond this point the necking will start. So as you can see, this graph is moving downward, means that during necking the stresses will decrease, but that in real life that is not the case. In real life these stresses will increase. So this is happening, this graph is going down because for calculating purpose, for engineering stresses, for calculating the engineering stresses, we are ignoring the reduction in the cross section area. That is why this graph is going downward, but in actual practice this is going in upward direction. That are called true, this is called the true curve, whereas this is called the engineering curve. Then we have something called strain energy. So friends, strain energy is equal to the work expanded in deformation of the material, or the work needed for the deforming the material. So the total energy corresponds to the area under this curve. Okay, friends. So as we know, this is the elastic region. So the area under this curve is called the elastic strain energy. Okay, friends, and this energy can be recovered if the forces are removed. Means that the elastic strain energy can be recovered if the deformation remains within the elastic limit. So within the elastic limit, if we apply load and then we remove the load, then in that case this elastic energy can be recovered from the material. Mostly this elastic and these strain energies are calculated as strain energy densities. So the strain energy, the elastic strain energy, is also called the modulus of resilience, as you can see, friends. So modulus of resilience is calculated as the area under the stress strain curve up to elastic limit. So up to elastic limit, this is called the modulus of resilience, and there is something called modulus of toughness. So this actually represents the whole area inside the curve, means that the elastic area plus the elastic region plus the plastic region. So both areas are represented by the modulus of toughness, or this is also called the strain energy density. So basically this is the energy absorbed by the material just before fracture. This is the fracture point. So till fracture point, it is total energy uh, per unit volume till fracture point. Friends, these are the stress strain curve for different materials like ductile and brittle materials. As you can see, this is for the ductile material. This will have distinct ultimate stress point and fracture point, but over here you can see the both points are same for the brittle material. Then these two curves, as you can see, this is the curve for the engineering, for calculating the engineering. Basically this represents the engineering stress strain curve, where the cross section area is taken as the initial cross section area before the application of force, whereas this curve is the actual true stress strain curve. Okay friends, over here from this point, the when necking takes place, or when there is reduction in the cross section area of the material, basically over here the strain is also basically the reduction in the cross section area is also taken care in this real this true stress strain curve. So friends, hope you have understood a little bit about these stress strain curves. So take care, have fun.